Okay, here's the translation, aiming for a natural, native speaker flow and tone, capturing the evocative style of the original. Imagine a world where every step along ancient trails leads to uncovering captivating secrets hidden within the pages of history. Mysterious temples, majestic pyramids, and hieroglyphs concealing millennia invite you to delve into the very heart of the Maya civilization. Prepare yourself for this incredible journey. Hit like if you want to learn more. And of course, don't forget to follow our channel on history and mythology. Our immersion into the enigmatic world of the Maya begins at the threshold of an astonishing universe, where dense, impenetrable jungles tenderly embrace ancient temples and majestic pyramids soar skyward, piercing the green expanse of foliage. The formation of this stunning culture, one of the most mysterious on Earth, began over 3,000 years ago. It was then that tribes, seeking refuge and resources amid the boundless forests, began to forge unique social structures, laying the foundations for future greatness. Honing their skills in agriculture and hunting, these ancient tribes gradually transitioned to a settled way of life, marking a turning point in their development. Soon, they not only mastered the art of cultivating vital crops like maize, beans, and squash, but also began developing complex irrigation systems. These agricultural achievements profoundly impacted their culture and lifestyle, ensuring food security and allowing the population to grow. The nature of the South American jungles, filled with both bounteous and awe-inspiring creatures and phenomena, shaped the deep spiritual beliefs of the Maya, permeating every aspect of their existence. For the Maya, the aesthetics and power of nature were not merely a backdrop for existence. Mountains, rivers, and forests were considered sacred places inhabited by powerful spirits. They believed that every element of nature, every plant, and every stream of water held significance and was endowed with inner power, vividly reflected in their myths and legends. The Maya mythological system was incredibly complex and multi-layered, featuring a pantheon of gods who acted and manifested through the elements. Each person's life was conceived as inextricably linked to the divine world, where natural cycles and events were direct expressions of the will of higher powers. Over time, as they mastered nature and grasped its laws, the Maya began transitioning from small settlements to building the first true cities. These early urban centers grew from modest villages, typically centered around a focal point, a main temple, or a vast public plaza. Archaeological evidence strongly indicates that even before the Common Era, Maya architecture had acquired its characteristic monumental forms. Not only did impressive temples appear, but also other outstanding decorative elements, including intricate stone carvings and vibrant murals adorning building walls. Alongside religious structures, public plazas were actively built in these growing cities. It was here that important religious ceremonies, social events, and political gatherings took place, testifying to the rapidly increasing complexity of their social structure and the need for centers of public life. The Maya didn't just survive in harsh conditions, they created a society rich in culture, profound knowledge and art. Their priests were not only bearers of religious wisdom, but also outstanding astronomers and mathematicians whose skills were astonishing. Their knowledge was so precise that it allowed them to predict solar and lunar eclipses with accuracy astounding for the time, making them supreme authorities in society and granting them immense political and spiritual weight. The diversity of their sacred texts, such as the legendary Popol Vuh, ensured not only the preservation of historical memory, but also a deep understanding of the world they lived in and their place within it. These texts, recorded in complex hieroglyphs, opened doors to their unique perception of the cosmos and defined humanity's role within this grand structure. Nevertheless, the unpredictable nature of their environment demanded constant adaptation and ingenuity from the Maya. Climate changes, such as devastating floods or prolonged droughts, could severely threaten their food supply, challenging the very existence of communities. Consequently, they developed a complex system of rituals aimed at appeasing the gods and maintaining harmony with nature. Numerous festivals and ceremonies were held each year, not only uniting the people, but also strengthening their faith and sense of community, reminding them of the interdependence between humans and the divine world. This constant interaction with the divine and the pursuit of harmony with nature reflected the Maya's internal struggle against chaos and unpredictability, compelling them to continually find ways to ensure the well-being and stability of their communities. As populations grew and social structures became more complex, the Maya inevitably faced new challenges brought by the winds of time. Conflicts intensified between the burgeoning city-states, and the struggle for valuable resources and political influence in the region escalated. These wars, imbued with deep ritual significance, became not only political, but also spiritual events, where each conflict was viewed as a kind of battle for the favor and benevolence of the gods, its outcome dependent on their will. The drive for greatness and dominance became a critical element of their culture, manifesting in grandiose construction projects, art, and military campaigns. The memory of great rulers, their deeds, and victorious battles was elevated into mythology, immortalized in monuments and texts. The golden age of Maya culture was just beginning, and each new page of their history promised greater discoveries in a world where humans and gods intertwined in an eternal dance of life and death, creation and destruction, constantly striving for the harmony this ancient people so deeply craved. The genesis of the Maya civilization occurred in a territory stretching from the southern regions of modern-day Mexico to Guatemala, where, over 3,000 years ago, the first groups of people began to settle the land. They actively started cultivating the soil, developing effective farming methods and creating irrigation systems, which allowed them to maintain high yields even amidst the periodic droughts characteristic of the region. Maize held a central place in their lives. It was not just a staple food, but also acquired deep symbolic meaning, becoming a symbol of high religious aspirations and divine blessing. The first Maya groups began settling lands enveloped by dense and often impenetrable forests, soon realizing the critical importance of establishing a stable and reliable food base for survival in these conditions. They developed effective agricultural techniques, such as slash and burn farming, clearing forest by burning and using the ash as fertilizer, which provided fertile soil. On this land, abundant crops of maize, squash, and beans, the three core staples of their diet, flourished. These crops not only provided sustenance, but were also deeply intertwined with their mythology and agricultural rituals, playing a key role in their beliefs and social life. Maize became the primary food source, intrinsically woven into the fabric of their society and spiritual concepts. The technological achievements of the early Maya were equally impressive, particularly their irrigation systems. These canals and reservoirs, dug by diligent hands, not only increased crop yields during dry periods, but also served as vital infrastructure hubs, enabling the population to settle and cultivate increasingly remote territories, expanding their living area. Water from rivers and streams filled the canals, nourishing the land and ensuring stable harvests year after year, regardless of the weather's whims. These advancements in irrigation and agriculture laid the groundwork for the emergence of the first large settlements and fortifications, where inhabitants gathered, accumulating knowledge and experience. As small villages transformed into thriving agricultural centers and eventually cities, the Maya people began developing complex cultural traditions and rituals. The gods who guarded the fields and bestowed harvests became central figures in their beliefs, and maize came to represent not just physical sustenance, but the very physical and spiritual life of the Maya, their origins, and their connection to the divine. The Maya sincerely believed that every good harvest resulted from divine intervention and favor, leading them to perform numerous rituals to appease their gods, offer gifts, and ensure the continuation of favorable natural cycles. With agricultural development, a more complex economic network began to form. Production surpluses allowed some members of society to specialize in other crafts, such as pottery, textile making, stone carving, and metalworking. Trade, gradually evolving from simple bartering between neighboring settlements, became the foundation for broader economic ties. Each city or large settlement aimed for self-sufficiency, but surplus goods were actively exchanged for items unavailable locally. The first classes of merchants and artisans emerged, finding their place in the developing social hierarchy. People learned not only to cultivate their fields, but also to interact more deeply with the surrounding nature. They began mastering sophisticated methods of effective hunting and gathering wild plants and products, enabling them to not only survive but thrive, diversifying their diet and obtaining valuable resources. This emergence symbolized the beginning of a more complex social structure, where distinct classes formed, from farmers and artisans to warriors and a nascent elite, each playing a unique role in societal life and contributing to the community's development. These early settlements laid the foundation for the future great cities and cultures that would later astonish the world with their achievements in science, mathematics, astronomy, and architecture. It was here, amidst the jungles and canals, against the backdrop of hills and rivers, that the first steps were taken in developing the culture we now know as the magnificent Maya civilization, a culture deeply embedded in their societal structure, setting them on a path toward great discoveries and accomplishments. Cultural connections played a crucial role in the rise of Maya civilization, with the older Olmec civilization exerting a particularly significant influence. The Olmecs, who lived along the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, are considered the mother culture of Mesoamerica and gifted the Maya many fundamental concepts, including the basics of complex calendar systems, early forms of writing, and the structure of certain religious rituals. These earlier achievements were adapted and refined by the Maya according to their own perspectives and needs, resulting in their unique systems distinguished by even greater precision and complexity, including extraordinarily accurate calendars and sophisticated hieroglyphic writing. The influence of the Olmecs on neighboring peoples, including the Maya, truly cannot be overstated. The Olmecs developed rich symbolism, created impressive artifacts, like the colossal heads, and had established educational practices that were gradually transmitted through trade networks and cultural contact. One of their key concepts was a deep understanding of time and its cyclical nature. Building on Olmec ideas, the Maya developed their unique and exceedingly complex interpretation of time, actively using calendars that reflected the movement of celestial bodies and cosmic cycles with astonishing accuracy. The framework laid by the Olmecs allowed the Maya to create their own, even more sophisticated calendars. These calendars not only tracked seasonal changes, agricultural cycles, and ritual dates, but also pinpointed important cosmic events. For instance, the Maya developed a complex system incorporating distinctions between the sacred calendar, Tzolk'in, 260 days, and the solar calendar, Hab, 365 days. Their combination allowed for the precise determination of planetary positions and other astronomical phenomena, hundreds, even thousands, of years in advance. This knowledge was critically important, both in daily life related to farming and in complex ritual practices and war planning, making Maya priests unparalleled authorities. Their successes in astronomy and mathematics made the Maya not just skilled farmers, but true celestial observers and scholars. Writing was no less important. The Olmecs were among the first in Mesoamerica to develop a hieroglyphic writing system, which significantly influenced the Maya, becoming the basis for their own system. However, unlike the Olmecs, the Maya refined their writing to the highest level, creating a multi-layered system capable of recording a wide variety of texts, from historical chronicles and ruler genealogies to complex religious treatises and astronomical observations. This advanced writing system enabled the Maya to preserve a rich cultural heritage, making it possible to record their myths, legends, and sacred texts, which were profound and held immense significance for the people. Furthermore, Olmec deities and their cults also provided the Maya with foundations for forming their religious practices. Many aspects of Olmec religion, including belief in nature deities, jaguar worship, and ritual sacrifice, were adopted and adapted by the Maya, becoming core elements of their spiritual life and cosmology. Knowledge of a divine essence, personifying the link between heaven and earth, shaped the internal structure of their society, where rulers were often seen as intermediaries between humans and gods, possessing supernatural power. The relationship between the Olmecs and the Maya demonstrates how intercultural interaction leads to cultural enrichment and the emergence of new forms. The Olmecs transmitted their achievements and concepts, and the Maya, in turn, creatively adapted them, creating something unique and entirely new, often surpassing the original source. This phenomenon can be observed in various aspects of their cultural life, from monumental architecture and visual arts to mythology and scientific inquiry. By developing and transforming the Olmec legacy, the Maya were able to create one of the most prosperous and complex civilizations in Mesoamerica, leaving behind a great cultural heritage that continues to inspire scholars and adventurers even today, revealing ever more secrets. With the establishment of the first cities, located in modern-day Belize, Guatemala, and southern Mexico, the Maya began forming complex social structures characterized by a high degree of organization. This was a period when communities, founded on settled agriculture and collective labor, gradually transformed into the basis for complex urban societies with their own hierarchy and specialization. In these new settlements, growing around ceremonial centers, specialized classes began to emerge, notably priests, who played a central role in people's lives, acting as intermediaries connecting earthly existence with the world of deities and cosmic cycles. The priestly classes held a monopoly on sacred knowledge. They not only conducted religious rituals and ceremonies, but also engaged in meticulous observations of celestial bodies, recording the movements of stars, planets, and other heavenly phenomena. These astronomical observations formed the basis for developing their famously accurate calendars and system of prophecy. At that time, architectural achievements would astound modern observers with their monumentality and elegance. Enormous, majestic structures, such as pyramids and temples atop platforms, seemed to stretch towards the heavens, reaching for the gods and demonstrating their power on earth. This was not mere construction. It was evidence of deep faith, a striving to understand the very foundations of the universe, and a projection of the ruling elite's power. The Maya also developed a sophisticated system of hieroglyphic writing, actively used to record historical events, rulers' deeds, religious texts, and astronomical observations. These records, carved in stone, painted on ceramics, or written on bark paper, codices, became the foundation for flourishing arts and sciences. Art was closely linked to religion and politics, while scientific knowledge was used to strengthen the authority of priests and rulers. Legends and myths used to explain natural phenomena, cosmic processes, and social structures reflected the deep connection between the Maya world and the land, their dependence on nature. This connection manifested in careful observations of harvests, rain cycles, and celestial movements, all considered expressions of divine will. As cities expanded, so did their populations, demanding more complex organization and governance. Interaction between various social groups and classes became an integral part of their social structure, forming a complex hierarchy. Life in the first cities fostered the formation of distinct classes, from rulers and priests to warriors, artisans, and common farmers, each playing a vital role in governing and sustaining the community. Rulers' authority rested not only on military strength, but also on claimed divine lineage and, crucially, their ability to predict the future and interpret the gods' will with the help of priests and astronomers. Hereditary rule solidified dynasties that profoundly influenced the fates of entire cities and regions for centuries. Money, in our modern sense, was not yet fully utilized. The economy was based on bartering, often taking place in city plazas or along established trade routes. Yet, the unique role of priests as guardians of sacred knowledge and intermediaries with the divine was undeniable. They controlled not only religious life, but also a significant portion of political and intellectual life. Trade with neighboring cities and regions became an important aspect of their existence, providing access to valuable resources like obsidian, jade, cacao, salt, and exotic bird feathers. This exchange opened doors not only for commerce, but also for forming political alliances, or conversely, for confrontation. Over time, the first Maya cities, framed by ribbons of rivers and covered in lush jungle vegetation, became not only important economic and ceremonial centers, but also symbols of resilience, power, and the growing influence of one of Mesoamerica's greatest civilizations. They embodied not just the practical side of life, but also the imperative to heed the words of the deities and seek harmony with the cosmos, reflecting their strong roots in mythology and belief. This was a time when Maya culture actively explored new horizons, treading the shadowy paths of knowledge, which would eventually lead to the unprecedented flourishing of their civilization during the Classic period. The need to manage the increasingly complex Maya world inevitably required the creation of centralized authority. With the formation of the first urban societies around 1000 BCE, chiefs, who were initially just leaders of tribes or small communities, began transforming into rulers, wielding significantly greater power and influence over their territories and populations. This evolution of power was complex and lengthy, affecting not only political aspects, but also leading to profound changes in the culture, religion, and social structure of Maya society as a whole. With the adoption of intensive agriculture, development of irrigation, and population growth, an urgent need arose for more effective resource management, labor distribution, and maintenance of order. City-states like Tikal and Calakmul became dynamic centers capable of providing resources, protection, and organization for their numerous inhabitants, attracting people from surrounding villages. In these conditions, chiefs, previously responsible only for their small communities, began forming complex governance systems, including administrative bodies, judicial organs, and military structures, to ensure order, stability, and control over resources in the growing cities. The increasing need for centralized power was even more apparent given resource scarcity and growing competition. Resources became more valuable, and competition for fertile land, water sources, and trade routes emerged both among neighboring communities and within the cities themselves, breeding internal conflicts and factional struggles. In this situation, rulers quickly realized that their ability to hold power depended not only on their army's strength and wealth, but also on their religious legitimacy and ability to act as intermediaries with the divine world. Powerful rulers directed all their efforts towards becoming the main links between gods and humans, thereby elevating themselves above their subjects. Each dynasty had its unique traditions, rites, and origin myths, which helped them maintain authority and solidify their power. These rites often involved complex and sometimes brutal sacrifices, considered necessary to gain divine approval and bolster the ruling dynasty's power in the eyes of the populace. Rulers also actively used military force to conquer new territories and establish control over neighboring settlements, which also played a significant role in their legitimacy. Victories provided them with additional resources, lands, and captives for sacrifice, allowing them to act with greater confidence in their rule and dominance. A crucial component of this process was the close interaction with the priesthood, which was also concerned with societal stability and interpreting divine will. Priests, as keepers of ancient religious and scientific knowledge, established rules of conduct, formulated rites, and organized rituals, thereby maintaining social order and legitimizing the ruler's actions. They helped rulers shape public opinion by interpreting omens and predicting the future, forming a central part of the political machine by providing a spiritual foundation for secular power. This complex power structure, intertwining political, religious, and military influence, drove the construction of monumental structures. Pyramids and temples became embodiments of dynastic power and grandeur. These edifices served not only as religious centers, but also as architectural achievements, visibly demonstrating the ruler's might, immortalizing their deeds, and honoring them as mediators between the earthly and celestial realms. This epical period, known as the Classic, was not only a time of rapid urban growth and development of complex hierarchies, but also a time when Maya civilization showcased its full richness and diversity in cultural life, warfare, and internal understanding of the world, creating a unique governance structure that continued to evolve over centuries, reaching its zenith. In the process of forming complex social structures and consolidating power, Maya city-states began forming alliances, often highly unstable and prone to conflict, creating a constantly shifting political map of the region. These alliances were responses to the realities of the time: fierce struggles for limited resources, control over trade routes, territorial expansion, and the drive for absolute influence over neighbors. Often, powerful cities like Tikal and Calakmul were in a state of constant opposition, striving to assert their dominance in the increasingly turbulent political arena of Mesoamerica. As a result, numerous conflicts arose between them and their allies, leading not only to bloody wars, but also to chains of beneficial innovations in social and cultural life. The need for defense and warfare stimulated advancements in engineering, strategy, and tactics. Archaeological excavations and findings, such as the ruins of powerful fortifications around urban centers, traces of massive battles, and depictions of captives on monuments, convincingly confirm that cities not only defended themselves from attacks, but also actively warred against each other, attempting to dominate. Fortifications erected around cities testify to the constant threat of attacks from rivals. These defenses became symbols not only of advanced military strategy, but also of a complex social system capable of mobilizing significant labor and organizational resources. Under the pressure of incessant conflicts, cities were forced to continuously improve their methods of governance and organization, which contributed to building their military and economic might. During this period, the classes of priests, warriors, and rulers actively developed, each playing a unique role in societal life and the formation of political alliances. Pacts and alliances between cities could be strategically sound and long-term, or exceedingly short-lived, sometimes formed merely to achieve immediate goals against a common enemy. Some alliances were based on dynastic marriages or shared religious cults, strengthening spiritual bonds between peoples. But even within such alliances, tension always remained due to the ambitions of individual rulers and the struggle for supremacy. Conflicts could erupt at any moment, as rivals' interests rarely fully coincided, and a ruler's valor and legitimacy were often measured by success on the battlefield and the number of captured prisoners. Beyond military strategy, art and culture actively developed under competitive conditions, enriching the civilization and encouraging each city to find its unique path of development. Artisans and artists created breathtaking works of art, from monumental stele, depicting rulers, to exquisite pottery and jade artifacts, which significantly bolstered the city's status as centers of culture and power. They used natural materials to create monuments embodying not only the divine, but also the earthly secular nature of rulers, linking them to cosmic forces. Thus, every war brought not only destruction, but also creative processes, fostering societal development and change, stimulating innovation, and strengthening identity. An important socio-cultural aspect of these conflicts was the emergence and development of specific spiritual practices and cults related to warfare and sacrifice. Conflicts between cities demanded abundant sacrifices to appease the gods of war and fertility, which deepened religious rituals and enhanced the power of the priesthood. Priests, acting as intermediaries between gods and humans, used these events to increase their power and influence, interpreting battle outcomes as the will of higher powers. Through the ritual sacrifice of captives, priests could not only control public confidence and maintain social stability by demonstrating their connection to the gods, but also assert their city's supremacy. However, this often led to new conflicts, as ruling elites tried to strengthen their influence through fear and displays of cruelty, provoking retaliation. Therefore, despite their destructive and painful aspects, war and conflict were integral parts of the formation and development of Maya civilization. This period became a time of searching for one's path, understanding diversity, and weaving fates together, where the duality of strength and wisdom, war and culture, merged, creating a complex and dynamic foundation for the further development of the Maya. The golden age of the Maya was a period when city-states reached unprecedented heights in architecture, art, science, and political organization, becoming true metropolises. Each city, like a bright star in the Maya sky, possessed its unique identity and character, defined by its history, dynasties, and patron deities. The dynamics between these cities, rivalry, alliances, vassal relationships, and conflicts, created a complex political world, saturated with intrigue and struggles for dominance. Tikal, Calakmul, Palenque, and Copan became stunning examples of this splendor and might, showcasing the diversity of achievements. Tikal, the majestic center of power and authority in the Petén region, embodied military might and valor. Its gigantic pyramids, rising above the green ocean of the jungle, were not merely temples, but symbolic mountains, performing an act of breakthrough between heaven and earth, connecting the world of humans and gods. The walls of temples and palaces were adorned with complex reliefs and inscriptions, telling of ruling dynasties, their glorious campaigns, and divine origins. Among these reliefs, images of the predatory jaguar frequently appeared, symbolizing strength, power, and royal prerogative. Under the guidance of their Aja, rulers, and Itza, wise ones, including priests, astronomers, and scribes, Tikal's leaders relied on the scientific observations of astronomers and complex religious rituals of priests to make political decisions and legitimize their authority. Meanwhile, Calakmul, though perhaps less grand in architectural scale during certain periods, was a center of political cunning, intrigue, and an extensive vassal network. Politically linked to numerous other cities through alliances and marriages, Calakmul's rulers used diplomatic ties and covert maneuvers to secure their power, challenging Tikal's hegemony. Their throne represented strategic thinking, an ideal blend of military strategy and broad cultural and political influence. This city became known for its intricate dynastic marriages, complex alliances, and star wars, with Tikal creating a unique, albeit tense, cohesion among its allies. Palenque, situated on the western edge of the Maya world, was a true jewel of architecture and art, famed for its exquisite temples, palaces, and detailed inscriptions recounting the deeds of great rulers, their actions, and cosmology. The Temple of the Inscriptions, where the famous jade sarcophagus of ruler Pakal the Great with his renowned jade mask was found, became one of the symbols of Maya culture. This artifact was not just ornamentation, it symbolized the ruler's connection to the gods, his journey into the afterlife, and eternity, emphasizing the sacred nature of kingship. Palenque's skilled artisans who created these masterpieces used colored stones, shells, and precious materials, lending special significance to every element and symbol. During this time, the Maya reached the pinnacle of their astronomical knowledge. They created highly accurate calendars that allowed them to predict solar and lunar eclipses with astonishing precision, calculate planetary cycles, and determined dates for important rituals and agricultural tasks. Their astronomical observations enriched their understanding of time and celestial bodies. Scientific treatises written by priest scribes became the foundation for future generations, making the Maya not only great builders and artists, but also scholars, respected and revered as keepers of wisdom. This glimpse of harmony and development, achieved despite constant rivalry and conflict between cities, formed the basis of the Golden Age. City dwellers, imbued with a spirit of continuity and identity, dedicated their lives to maintaining and transmitting the streams of knowledge and tradition passed down through generations. Therefore, this period became not only a time of reaching heights in material culture, but also a time of grasping profound wisdom about the world and humanity. As cities grew and knowledge deepened, complex hierarchies governed everything, from religion to economy, from war to art. This powerful, interconnected structure linked cities and sustained the continuous development of the Maya as a civilization. It's important to note that every pyramid, every hieroglyphic inscription on a stela or temple told its own story, whether the deeds of a ruler, a record of a ritual, or an astronomical event, against the backdrop of the grand history of the Maya. The rivalry between Tikal and Calakmul smoothly transitioned into a new, fierce stage of conflict, where the world of strength and swords clashed with the world of cunning and strategic maneuvers. Here, in the very heart of Mesoamerica, two different approaches to power and dominance collided in what became one of the longest and most destructive wars among the ancient civilizations of the region. Tikal, with its sky-reaching pyramids, earned a reputation as an unshakable military bastion. Every corner, every structure spoke of the power and authority of the jaguar, a symbol embodying might and aggression, closely linked to the cult of Tikal's rulers. Tikal prided itself on its jaguar cult, and each temple was, in fact, not only a place of worship, but also a strategic point from which troops were managed and military campaigns planned. Tikal's rulers skillfully used their connections and military might to strengthen alliances, subjugate vassals, and strike at their most vulnerable opponents. The city's success in this military art was no accident. It resulted from careful planning, troop discipline, and faith in divine support. Priests, seeking to please the gods of war, were ready to lead their army into battle anytime the omens were favorable. At the same time, Calakmul remained a symbol of diplomacy, cunning, and political intrigue. With its iconic serpent emblem, possibly associated with Kukulkan, or a local variant, Calakmul's rulers sought peace and alliances when possible, strengthening ties through marriages, gifts, and vassal agreements, not solely through war. However, this path led to constant tension with Tikal, as the thirst for power and domination undermined peaceful attempts. Calakmul's ability to manage complex networks of conflicts and alliances only exacerbated the growing contradictions, drawing ever more cities into the conflict. Unlike Tikal, which rose like a colossus visible from afar. Calakmul perhaps relied more on its strategic advantage, using subtle maneuvers and hidden influence that could largely predetermine the outcome of future clashes. Priests not only tracked celestial movements for the calendar, but also predicted enemy actions using astrology, and possibly intelligence gathering. Like a snail, moving slowly but inexorably towards its goal, Calakmul developed complex schemes of intrigue and alliances that gradually undermined Tikal's position. Every successful alignment of interests and alliance with an important city influenced the overall power dynamic, shifting the balance. The prosperity of Calakmul's allied cities and their strong trade-based economies attracted many, but like any power relationship, these ties were fragile and unstable, easily broken by changes in rulers or new conflicts. While Tikal built up military might, entering into full confrontation, Calakmul tightly bound its supporters through diplomacy, agreements, and vassal treaties, even establishing roots within Tikal's own support structures by backing internal opponents. As tensions and mutual conflicts escalated into open warfare, intrigue and pitched battles intertwined, creating a complex and brutal picture of war. The art of war became as important as diplomatic efforts, requiring not only strength, but also intelligence, cunning, and an understanding of human nature. No confrontation went unnoticed. Every detail, whether a dynastic marriage or a minor skirmish, influenced how cities could continue their existence. In this process, various power plays determined who would be the next great power or who would face another crushing downfall. Wars for power were not just skirmishes between settlements over land or resources, but a distinct part of society, woven into the fabric of culture and spirituality. In every confrontation, a connection to the divine was invisibly felt, as every sword strike, every drop of blood spilled, and every sacrifice was aimed at pleasing the gods, gaining their support, or avoiding their wrath. The Maya understood that the outcome of battle could depend not only on the number of soldiers or the quality of weapons, but also on the favor of higher powers, expressed through signs and omens. These wars became not just battles. They transformed into rituals full of symbols and meanings, where every step was part of a larger, cosmic order. Conflicts were meticulously planned and organized, starting with choosing an auspicious day for the next battle, often based on Maya astronomical calculations. Maya astronomical precision played a key role in war planning. Priests determined favorable dates to ensure the support of stars and planetary cycles, aiding warriors or averting their success. Priests carefully observed celestial movements and determined when and how to engage in battle based on ancient, divined signs visible only to them. Each battle was not only a fight for land but also for respect, status, honor, and the sacred legitimacy of rulers. Every warrior strove to prove himself, seeking glory and valor. Victors carried not only spoils and riches, but also the hearts of captives, who became part of post-battle rituals. This bloody tribute, offered to the gods, was instrumentalized in glorious songs and depicted on monuments, immortalizing the victory and the ruler's power. Captives, especially noble warriors or enemy rulers, were symbols of war and triumph. Their blood, shed on the altar of victory, served not only as sustenance for the gods, but also as a symbol of valor, strength, and the ability to control others' fates. The Maya believed that within every sacrificed heart lay a portion of the power that shapes the very essence of the world and sustains its existence. The din of battle merged with the sharp cries of priests interpreting signs and symbols, and the cycles of sacrifice following the war were as crucial as the battle itself. Rulers cemented their connections with higher powers through post-victory rituals, reinforcing their authority and legitimacy. Military trophies were also relevant here. They didn't just glitter under the hot sun as symbols of victory, but also served as proof of the gods' blessing. The smooth stones touched beneath their feet, perhaps in dance or procession, and the spilled blood on the hallowed altar symbolized not only personal victories, but also control over the destiny of peoples and cities. National pride, built on military successes and conquests leading to favorable conditions, lifted the people's spirits, distancing them from fear and uncertainty. Every war left not only scars on the land, but also marks on the heart of the people, shaping their collective memory and identity. The ebb and flow of favorable stars were always linked to the cycle of conflicts, and the people understood this element had to continue for their well-being to persist. Difficult decisions were made, but this was a tribute to the sincere belief that war was part of the divine plan, and every day was a step towards war and peace between the realm of humans and the realm of gods, towards maintaining cosmic balance. Death and sacrifice held a central place in the Maya worldview. For them, war was not merely a battle for land or power, but a sacred ritual preceding the cult of warriors and the sweetness of victory. Maya society was deeply militarized. Men aspired to become warriors, gaining status based on their battlefield success and the number of captives taken. The process of sacrificing to various gods shaped their views on life and death and the interconnectedness between these two states. Every young Maya dreamed of becoming a warrior, for in their culture, battlefield valor elevated a man to the heavens, granting him honor and a favorable afterlife. Warrior training began from the earliest years. They learned not only combat techniques and weapon mastery, but also the philosophy of war, sacrifice-related rituals, and deep reverence for the gods, especially those of war and death. In society's eyes, the time and effort spent were justified only by successful conquest, which brought not only glory to the warrior and his city, but also special status. Those who distinguished themselves in battle could hope to join the ranks of their people's elite, climbing the social ladder through martial merit and divine connections. Sacrifice was an important rite reflecting the Maya belief in the necessity of positive interaction with the gods and maintaining cosmic balance. It was believed that whenever warriors died in battle or perished at enemy hands in ritual captivity, their souls became important messengers between the world of the living and the world of the dead. They journeyed to Xibalba, the underworld, where trials awaited, but successful passage promised eternal life among the blessings of underworld deities. A soul was received joyfully if death occurred with valor and according to ritual rules. Nevertheless, sacrifice, particularly the offering of hearts from captives taken atop pyramids, served as both tribute and a demonstration of power, emphasizing the connection of humans, specifically rulers and priests, to higher forces. Ritual sacrifice in their culture was deeply sacred. What might seem cruel was perceived as a harsh necessity to maintain world balance and nourish the gods with energy, ensuring their strength and continued favor upon the Maya lands. The cult of warriors was particularly prominent here, where even battlefield loss could be a triumph if met with dignity and courage. Each such ritual was steeped in symbolism, incorporating elements from the victim's heart to precious offerings for the deities, like jade, cacao, or feathers. The gods of the Maya pantheon had their own specific rituals through which priests demanded sacrifices. Kukulkan, the feathered serpent and symbol of wisdom and knowledge, also received sacred offerings, especially when needed to predict weather changes, ensure a good harvest, or gain luck in battle. Such sacrifices often underscored the necessity of blood as the source of life energy. Sometimes, priests offered their own essence, sacrificing wisdom, time, or even life through self-torture or ritual bloodletting to appease the gods and receive their omens. Not only military sacrifices mattered to the Maya, important rituals included weddings, harvest festivals, or planting times. Every action, whether acquiring material goods or participating in a ceremony, contained an element of the sacred. The ideal harmony of life, death, and constant renewal meant everything to Maya culture, forming the basis of their cosmology. By respecting the gods and striving to maintain their respect in return, they created their own circle of relationships between the world of the living and the dead, between earth and sky. Every step, every ritual, and every perspective on life and death formed images that helped preserve their unique identity and ensure the civilization's continued existence. The fall of the Maya Empire, more accurately, the decline of classic Maya city-states, did not happen instantly, like a single cataclysm, but rather faded gradually as people progressively abandoned their great cities, like the last leaves falling from an autumn tree. This process was complex and multi-staged, reflecting not only incessant wars with neighboring tribes and cities, but also internal frictions and contradictions that slowly eroded the foundations of their society from within. It was a period of decline when powerful dynasties, once towering, began to crumble under the pressure of layered conflicts. Power struggles, internecine wars, and economic downturns caused by various factors. Parallel to political turmoil and social tension, climate change also began significantly impacting Maya life, becoming one of the key factors in the decline. Long-term studies indicate that droughts striking the Yucatan during the final centuries of the Classic period were prolonged and catastrophic, causing the collapse of the agricultural system. Increasingly frequent and lengthy droughts made agriculture, the bedrock of their economy and spirit, extremely difficult. Fields once bountiful thanks to irrigation systems began to dry up, and rivers and reservoirs dwindled, leaving people without water sources. Massive crop failures exacerbated famine and social discontent in the cities, compelling inhabitants to abandon their homes in search of survival in other, more viable regions. In such difficult times, internal conflicts intensified. Power concentrated in the hands of ruling dynasties was undermined by growing dissatisfaction among subjects seeking an ideal leader capable of restoring prosperity and offering hope for a better future that was visibly slipping away. The desperate attempt to retain power at all costs often led to disastrous consequences. This resulted in numerous internecine wars and fragile alliances that sharpened contradictions between cities, weakening them and undermining any common strategy for survival or unity against external threats. Historians and archaeologists studying this period conclude that the Maya began abandoning their great centers one by one, choosing exile or urgent resettlement to other, less affected areas. They left behind not only majestic temples and magnificent palaces, but also their complex culture, architectural achievements, and state structures. Seeking refuge in other regions typically led to the blending of traditions with other peoples, altering their identity and weakening cultural integrity. With each abandoned city, memory survived only as ruins, eventually swallowed by the jungle, becoming part of the natural landscape. Complex technological achievements that once made Maya civilization so great, the ability to build enormous pyramids, deep knowledge of astronomy and mathematics, a sophisticated writing system, teetered on the brink of extinction or were lost, along with the understanding of centuries-old religious rites. This loss of knowledge evoked sadness and nostalgia among the survivors, as each passing day distanced them further from the power and grandeur they once achieved. Notably, the disappearance of the Maya from major urban centers did not mean the end of their history as a people. Traces of their civilization continue to live on in the culture and myths of their descendants, in languages and stories passed down through generations. Deep down, the peoples who became interactive, parts of the new cultural mosaic of Mesoamerica, continued to honor their ancestors and remember the greatness of the civilization that once flourished on this land. Thus, despite the physical disappearance of many cities and political collapse, the spirit of the Maya truly lives on, woven into the diverse tapestry of the region's life and transforming its future. The post-classic period, after 900 CE, saw a new dawn for Maya civilization, especially in the northern Yucatan Peninsula, where urban life revived and new powerful centers emerged. During this time, Chichen Itza and Uxmal once again became important cultural and spiritual hubs, showcasing a remarkable blend of old traditions and new influences. The famous Pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza, still admired for its architectural grandeur and astronomical precision, now symbolized not only military might and divine connection, but also served as a beacon for seeking knowledge and understanding in a new world experiencing active cultural fusion. The walls of temples and buildings in these cities reflect a blend of traditions, their rituals combining ancient rites with new ideas brought from outside. However, alongside the preservation and reinterpretation of traditions, unexpected cultural nuances began developing in Chichen Itza and Uxmal, distinguishing them from the classic southern cities. Inhabitants actively absorbed and adapted influences from incoming peoples, such as the Toltecs from central Mexico, who brought their customs, art, architectural styles, and philosophical ideas, including the cult of the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, which merged with the local Kukulkan cult. This fusion of old and new manifested in all spheres: architecture, art, and rituals, where traditional Maya elements combined with innovative approaches to life and construction. Thus, mosaics and reliefs featured new symbols and motifs characteristic of central Mexico, and the interweaving of styles created a unique atmosphere in cities where past history collided with new, contemporary realities. Uxmal, with its majestic buildings like the Governor's Palace and the Pyramid of the Magician, became an example of complex cultural dialogue and high architectural mastery. Here, temples with impressive facades stand tall, as if chanting ancient prayers, preserving the ancestors' voices in stone. Unlike the older classic period cities, which practiced massive and sometimes brutal sacrifices, Uxmal and some other post-classic centers perhaps adopted a more humanistic approach to rituals, or at least their nature changed. People began to understand the importance of harmony with nature, respect for the land and its gifts, possibly in response to past environmental crises. This realization allowed them to interact with the elements not merely by resisting them, but while still maintaining a connection with the gods through more symbolic or less bloody rituals. New art forms emerged based on reworked symbols and myths. Artists used their talents to craft exquisite pottery, vibrant textiles, and fine wood and metalwork, conveying stories about a world where diverse cultures and traditions merged. The traditions of one people enriched those of others, creating a unique cultural synthesis. Merchants from the East, like the Itza Maya from Champoton, eventually became key participants in this cultural exchange, bringing new ideas, goods, and technologies, facilitating the spread of influences from other regions. The interplay of these diverse elements, from architecture to daily life, shaped a new worldview, looking towards the future while preserving the memory of the past. However, not everything was peaceful during this historical period. Conflicts between cities continued, highlighting the vulnerability of new societies and the instability of the political situation. Alliances formed and dissolved based on political and economic interests, creating constant tension. The spirit of rivalry still existed in Uxmal and Chichen Itza, driving cities to strive for greatness and supremacy, manifested in construction and conquests. Meanwhile, fear of external threats, perhaps from the rising Aztecs or other groups, prompted citizens to seek new alliances and unite for defense. Simultaneously, the development of new religious teachings and syncretic cults intensified discussions about humanity's place in the world, spirituality, and true values. Local priests, as keepers of ancient knowledge, began adapting their rituals and beliefs to incorporate innovations and external influences, making them more interactive and perhaps closer to the changing society. These changes were reflected not only in rituals, but also in public life. People started debating philosophical questions, pondering the meaning of life, the nature of gods, and humanity's place in the cosmos, demonstrating intellectual activity. This fusion of old and new cultural elements created a unique identity that would attract the attention of researchers and those interested in the complex history of the Maya for centuries. Chichen Itza and Uxmal became not only great cities with outstanding architectural solutions and monuments, but also symbols of a new era where ancestral wisdom opened doors for significant changes and cultural evolution, shaping the future based on a deep understanding of their history and a readiness to integrate new ideas. From the beginning of the 16th century, the Maya world, as it had existed for millennia, began to change irrevocably when white sails appeared on the horizon, carrying an unknown and ominous threat. These Spanish conquistadors, consumed by an insatiable thirst for wealth, gold, and power, were not just conquerors in the traditional sense. They were carriers of deadly diseases unknown to the local population and brutal ambitions that could, and ultimately did, lead to the demise of an entire civilization that had reached a high level of development. Many saw the New World merely as lands ripe for conquest and peoples to be subdued, but behind this lurked a far more terrifying threat: the annihilation of a unique culture. The Spaniards' penetration into the heart of the Maya world marked the beginning of the end for peoples who had spent centuries building their cities, developing a highly complex culture, creating precise calendars, and striving for deep knowledge of the universe. When the first ships docked on the shores of Mexico in the early 16th century, local tribes met the newcomers with apprehension, but also some hope, perhaps anticipating trade opportunities or new alliances against traditional enemies. While some conquistadors, like Cortés initially, tried to establish contact and exploit local rivalries, others, especially his followers and smaller bands, showed no mercy, advancing with unprecedented brutality. From the first moments of their presence, it became clear. Instead of desired cultural exchange or military alliance, the Maya peoples faced an incomprehensible impact from an alien, unknown reality. Aggressive, technologically superior, and driven by different values. Based on their own myths of conquest and superiority, the Spanish began their invasion, wielding fiery steel swords and muskets that roared and spewed smoke, concepts alien to the Maya, against which their traditional weapons were largely ineffective. Each battle was not only a fight for territory and resources, but also a brutal assault on the beliefs, customs, and heritage of the entire Maya culture, on their way of life. However, perhaps the deadliest weapon carried by the Spanish fleets were diseases like smallpox, measles, typhus, and influenza. These infections, to which the native population had no immunity, acted like invisible enemies, rapidly decimating entire tribes and cities, reducing populations by 90% or more. These epidemics struck like a sharp, devastating blow against those already facing the physical threat of warfare and social upheaval. Dying without understanding what was happening, the Maya lost not only loved ones, but also their social structure. knowledge keepers, priests, rulers, the very pillars upon which their lives and society were built. Their deities, once benevolent and wise, now seemed silent in the face of this new menace. People desperately sought explanations, realizing that traditional sacrifices and prayers brought neither promised answers nor protection. The battlefield conflicts weren't immediately focused solely on land seizure, though that was the ultimate goal. It was a deeper struggle, a fight for the soul of the people against the annihilation of their identity and way of life. The Spanish, with their implacable faith military machine, destroyed temples, burned books, banned rituals, leading not only to the loss of the familiar way of life, but also traditions rooted in the nation for centuries. City after city, village after village, fell under attack and destruction, and each new conquistador success seemed like the final nail in the coffin of the old civilization. But despite defensive attempts based on traditional warfare methods with their ritualistic content and deep symbolism, they were not entirely resistant to new forms of struggle. The rallying of remnants of traditional tribes against the common enemy propelled them into a new phase of historical movement, resisting occupation. Even amidst complete ruin and decline, the spirit of resistance lived on, manifesting in local uprisings and the preservation of traditions. Leaders emerged capable of uniting scattered groups, rallying them to defend their gods and land, just as their ancestors had done centuries before when fighting other city-states. Each new conflict, each new battle became not just attempts to preserve physical existence, but a meaningful struggle for the reclamation of the very foundations of identity, for the right to be themselves. These sacrifices cost thousands of lives, but they remain forever etched in the people's memory as a symbol of the endless fight for their culture and heritage, demonstrating incredible resilience in the face of annihilation. Facing the threat of complete extinction, even under immense pressure and the constant threat of oblivion, Maya culture demonstrated incredible resilience, preserving its traditions and beliefs, passing them down through generations, often in secret. Every book, every text they left behind became a beacon of hope, illuminating the darkness of misunderstanding and fear imposed by the conquerors. Their sacred writings, like the Popol Vuh or the Chilam Balam texts, contained not only myths and legends about the creation of the world and the deeds of gods, but were keys to understanding many aspects of their lives, cosmology, and very existence. Thanks to this heritage, we can understand how the Maya viewed the world, their place in it, and the interconnectedness of all things. The wisdom contained in these books and oral traditions gave them strength during the darkest times. Each page was imbued with deep philosophical reflections on life, death, and time, which they perceived not linearly, but cyclically. It was precisely this concept of endless cycles that allowed them to endure hardships, see crises not as ends but merely as stages, offering hope for new rebirth after destruction, whether external by conquerors or internal conflicts. During brutal wars, famines, and natural disasters, these texts became sources of solace and understanding, reminding them that every crisis is just a temporary phase on the path to new achievements and renewal. Heightened attention to nature and its cycles was a fundamental aspect of their worldview. Their sacred books contained metaphors related to plant life cycles, changing seasons, and celestial phenomena, associating each with omens, prophecies, and the will of the gods. They sought signs in the stars, lunar cycles, and planetary movements, understanding that everything in this world is connected and interdependent. Maya culture was permeated with symbolism, and every ritual action held meaning, strengthening their connection to divine forces and cosmic order. When the Spanish arrived in Maya lands, they couldn't completely destroy this culture, despite destroying temples, burning codices, and imposing a new religion. The books, the few that survived, and those later written in Latin script based on oral traditions, and more importantly, Maya oral traditions survived in the heart of the people, passed down by word of mouth. Only those who could read the signs and understand the ancestral language realized that all sacred knowledge is a stream that continues to flow. Even when the banks have changed and the landscape is different. We are presented with a picture where, thanks to ancestral wisdom, Maya culture was not merely erased, but left a deep imprint for future generations, preserving its customs and rituals. Even in the hardest times, the Maya sought ways to transmit knowledge, adapt to the new reality, while retaining their roots. Each generation asked questions, trying to understand how to live according to ancient precepts in a new world, giving new forms and expressions to their roots, often in syncretic ways. Today, Maya books, whether ancient codices or post-contact records, serve as mirrors reflecting not only their history, but perhaps our own human nature. They show how humanity can overcome difficulties, preserving identity and connection to the past, finding strength in ancestral wisdom. Studying these texts, archaeologists and researchers discover not only facts about ancient civilizations, but also universal truths about humanity and its place in the cosmos. We can learn from the mistakes and achievements of the Maya, who left us a divine legacy of their thought and way of interacting with the world. While some facts of their history remain unclear and enigmatic, the wisdom they accumulated remains relevant today, inspiring new research and exploration. Their history and culture are not just archaeological finds, but symbols of their resilience and a bridge between past and present, repeatedly offering opportunities for understanding and perhaps recreating lost values. The memory of gods and sacred concepts resided not only in somber relics, but also in knowledge passed from generation to generation through complex oral and written traditions. The skill and wisdom of the Maya, accumulated in their writings and lore, were not just records, but living testaments to their quest to understand the universe and their place within it. They believed that events, whether joy or sorrow, bore the imprint of divine design, and thus every word, every thought recorded in their sacred texts was imbued with profound significance. This knowledge, gathered in sacred texts like the Popol Vuh, became the foundation of their culture and faith, transforming their views on the world and humanity's role in it. The ways the Maya expressed their faith varied from complex sacrificial rituals to highly precise astronomical observations. They marked the dawn of time with such accurate calculations that their calendars astounded Europeans upon first contact with their complexity and precision. The nature of time held a central place in the Maya worldview. They perceived it as a cyclical process, where the end of one cycle automatically served as the beginning of another, bringing renewal. This aspect of life allowed them to feel a sense of connection, even when facing the brutal intrigues and destruction of colonization. Maya culture managed to preserve its identity despite external cultural invasions, weaving new elements into the existing structure. Myths and legends, woven into their daily lives, served not only to explain natural phenomena and cosmic processes, but also to convey moral and ethical norms, rules of societal conduct. These sacred stories, recorded in documents, told of gods and spirits, clearly showing that the concept of divinity itself was multi-layered and multifaceted, reflecting the complexity of the world. Each god possessed unique traits, reflecting human emotions and natural processes. Just as their sacred books revealed principles of governance and rule, they were not merely holy texts, but life guides passed from one priest to another, timeless in their relevance. The Maya understood their lives were closely linked to the heavens and the gods, and knew the importance of correct rituals for maintaining harmony in the world and preventing chaos. These fundamental principles created a sense of confidence and security within their community. The priesthood played a key role in maintaining this link between the earthly and the divine. They were keepers of ancient knowledge, teachers who transmitted deeper truths about life and death, about what is as important as manifesting divine will. Even despite dark times when their culture faced oppression and oblivion, their ideas, based on knowledge of time, nature, and cosmic cycles, continue to live in the hearts of descendants and inspire researchers. Research by archaeologists and historians underscores the importance of the Maya for understanding many aspects of human existence. These civilizations became models of sustainable coexistence with nature, based on a deep understanding of its cycles, which helped them maintain balance in the world. For them, time was not just a unit of measurement, but an eternal existence in the cycle of the cosmos. It was sacred. This concept provided cohesion for their community, holding society together even when moments seemed like an unending trial. Thus, in their philosophy and magic, there was no end. They sought eternity, not at the end of the path, but in the infinite cycle, where every step undoubtedly helps understand the inseparability of life and death, past and future. Modern myths and legends associated with Maya civilization permeate not only academic circles, stimulating research, but also popular culture, sparking lively interest and deep reflections on the essence of human existence and its place in the universe. These legends are not just stories passed down through generations. They embody humanity's quest to find its place in the world understand immortality through sacrifice, worship, and honoring ancestors. Every relic, every tradition paints a vivid picture of the civilization, endowing it with meaning and relevance in the contemporary world. In the modern world, surrounded by rapid change, technological progress, and sometimes a loss of spiritual bearings, Maya myths regain relevance, transporting us to the past and prompting reflection on eternal truths. Clouds of mystical experiences, like deities and their interactions with humans, regain significance, reflecting a need for spiritual connection and the search for meaning. Humans instinctively seek significance in their lives, and it is through Maya culture, its myths and philosophy, that they find historical roots connecting them to eternal questions about life and death, fate and free will, cosmic order. The myth of Kukulkan, the great feathered serpent, persists in modern consciousness as a symbol of devotion, sacred knowledge, and cyclical renewal. Suddenly, destiny seems to echo a return, and we see mythology re-emerging into a new reality where the sacrifices and suffering of ancestors could easily be forgotten, if not for their constant reminder of how they fought for their place under the sun and preserved their culture. People entangled in mundanity and routine find solace in these stories, seeking clues and lessons for their own lives. Sometimes, it seems to them that truth might be hidden within sacred texts or in the whispering voices of trees in the jungle. Meaningful rituals, such as sacrifice, in symbolic forms, like offerings, or ceremonies linked to natural cycles, continue to breathe in the modern world, especially among indigenous Maya peoples who still hold the richness of this ancient culture within their lives. They unite thoughts of infinity and restoration, of connection with ancestors and gods. Every gesture, every word in these rituals repeats profound symbols of cycles and rebirth, projecting an understanding of human existence through the lens of Maya cosmology. They serve not only as offerings to the gods, but also as connecting threads between worlds, our mundane world and the sacred cosmic realms. These interconnections embody the aspiration to preserve the spirit of the culture, protecting it from oblivion and assimilation. Furthermore, legends of crystal skulls emerging in our consciousness forge a connection between Maya history and contemporary society. Objects that lead us down paths of knowledge and mystical discoveries continue to fuel our interest in ancient civilizations. Within every find lies a legend. Within every object, ancient wisdom waiting to be uncovered and applied to understand the world. To understand how modern myths and legends continue to evolve, they shape our perception of history. Through the prism of mythology, we can contemplate not only our own fears and hopes, but also transcendent realms where the boundaries between being and non-being become blurred. As a result, Maya myths continue their existence not as fossilized records of the past, but as dynamic legends capable of adapting and resonating within the consciousness of modern humans. This reinterpretation becomes an important part of cultural heritage.